Hello, everyone. Welcome to our event this year for this month, Green Chemistry Connections, and we're very excited to have you all here. Just a quick reminder before we get started, which you should have seen in the chat, is that this meeting is being recorded, so just make sure you know that. So if you are unmuting yourself or talking during the presentation, your voice might be recorded. However, the focus will be on the presenter throughout the meeting. So we just want to make sure that you know about this before we get started. At the beginning, we'll just do a quick introduction and get the event started. So we'll do a quick introduction of the organizers. So my name is Gagan. I'm a student here at McGill University. So that's where I'm joining from today, from Montreal, Canada. And I'm super excited to have you guys all here.
Hi, I'm Sarah. I'm also a PhD student at McGill University, and along with Gagan, I'm one of the co-organizers for the Green Chemistry Connections.
And hi, I'm Jasmine. I, along with Sarah and Gagan, am the third of the graduate student liaisons that are organizing Connections this year. And like them, I'm also from McGill.
Hi, everybody. I'm Cynthia Milagre. I'm associate professor at São Paulo State University, and I'm talking to you from Brazil.
Hi, everyone. I'm Oyeshola Basirat from Nigeria. I am a senior lecturer at the Chemical Sciences Department of the Taisho University of Education. I am really excited to be here, and I trust you as well. Thank you.
All right, so before we get started, we just want to acknowledge that this Green Chemistry Connections is brought to you by the support of Millipore Sigma as well as ICL. And we're just going to begin with a land acknowledgement. So as mentioned before, a few of us, especially in the Green Chemistry Connections team, are situated in Montreal, Canada. So we just want to start with a land acknowledgement. So McGill University is located on land which has long served as a site of meeting and exchange amongst Indigenous peoples, including the Haudenosaunee and Anishinaabe nations. McGill honors, recognizes, and respects these nations as the traditional stewards of the lands and waters on which we meet today.
And since Montreal is in Quebec, which is a French-speaking province in Canada, we're just going to repeat the same thing, but in French. So, l'Université McGill est sur un emplacement qui a longtemps servi de lieu de rencontre et d'échange entre les peuples autochtones, y compris les nations Haudenosaunee et Anishinaabe. McGill honore, reconnaît et respecte ces nations à titre d'intendant traditionnel des terres et de l'eau sur lesquelles nous nous réunissons aujourd'hui. Thanks.
And in the spirit of reconciliation, we pay respects to the indigenous people of Brazil, who are the first knowledge holders of this land. Presently, this meeting place is still home of more than 300 indigenous nations, and we honor, respect, and celebrate the diversity of peoples connected to this land.
Awesome. So before we begin, I just want to go over a quick things about Zoom. So when you go to the settings of your name, you can rename to include your pronouns so we can address each other as everybody identifies and we respect each other. Additionally, you can activate live transcripts and have with using the CC button at the bottom of your screen, and that way you can see the transcript be done as we talk in English. Additionally, the slides and transcript will be available after the connections through the email that Chloe will send after.
All right, so we do have a code of conduct for the Green Chemistry Connections. It's important to us that everyone feels a sense of belonging during these connections. So by participating, you agree to be professional, respectful, and considerate, respectful of everyone, their identities, and giving everyone a chance to speak when they can. We will not tolerate any form of harassment, discrimination, bullying. If you do see any of this behavior, please message one of us in the meeting chat and we'll handle it accordingly. And just as a general guideline for the breakout rooms later, speak up, introduce yourself, and then step back to give other people a space to introduce themselves as well.
So just to go briefly over today's agenda. So following this introduction and this agenda, there'll be a bit more from Zhu, I believe. And then following that, we have the first of our two presentations today from Colin Hannahan, who is with the UN Environment Program. And he'll have a short presentation followed by an activity and then a Q&A. And then there'll be some breakout rooms with him, the Beyond Benign team, and the Green Chemistry Connections team. Following that, there'll be a short break. And then after the break, we'll have our next presentation. So yeah, Zhu, if you want to go.
Thank you so much, Jasmine. Yeah, I just wanted to take this moment to introduce the Green Chemistry Education Challenge Award winners. So for those of you who are not familiar with what this is, the UNEP, we partner with industry to support the integration of green chemistry into the curriculum and pretty much support all of our signers and all of the amazing things they're doing. So it's my big pleasure to introduce you. Let's change this slide. Yes, to our 2023-2024 Green Chemistry Education Challenge Award winners from Milipore Sigma. So Ambrose University, Georgia Gwinnett College, Ty Solarian University of Education, University of Toronto, Visayas State University Tolosa, McGill, Harrisburg University, CU University of Toronto, and University of Calgary, and Universidade Estadual de Ponta Grossa. Congratulations, all of you, for your awards. We're thrilled and very happy to support you and see all of the amazing things you're going to do and to implement green chemistry in your education. So congratulations to all of you and thank you. And in the next slide, we had 3 more award winners supported by Beyond Benign. We had California State University, San Marcos, Stella and Charles Gutman Community College, and the Pontificia Universidad Católica de Puerto Rico. Congratulations to all of you for your awards, and thanks to Milipore Sigma to help us funding and support all of you. So thank you so much for your work, and I'm excited to turn over to our organizers so they can introduce Colin. Thank you so much, and congratulations, everyone.
So our first speaker today is Colin Hannahan. So Colin has worked on green and sustainable chemistry as a consultant with the United Nations Environment Program, Chemicals and Health Branch since January 2021. Originally from the USA, Colin holds his bachelor's in chemical engineering from the University of Massachusetts and a master's in sustainable chemistry from the Universitat Politecnica de Valencia in Spain. He has experience working with a range of stakeholders on strengthening green chemistry education and the science policy interface.
Thank you for the introduction. Should I begin?
Yes.
Great. Okay, I'm just going to share my screen. All right, everyone can see that? Great. So thank you again for the intro and to Beyond Benign for organizing this. And of course, to everybody here for coming, looking through the participant list, and it's a nice group. I recognize some people. And yeah, I'm really excited to use the group we have here to get some input. So I'm going to start off, just give a little bit of context to why the UN is working on the topic of green and sustainable chemistry. And then I'll get more into the education part. And then after, I'm hoping to have a bit of an interactive session to get some feedback and further develop some of the resources we have on education and green and sustainable chemistry. So I'm going to try to be brief, but hopefully I don't go too fast. Okay, so there we go. Okay, so going back to 2017, the UN, they led the development of this big document called the Global Chemicals Outlook 2. So it's like very thick, 700-page document, 500 scientists, experts in all areas of chemicals were involved in its development. I think some people who are here in the audience contributed. And there's a range of findings, but I put 3 on the screen here that maybe are relevant to green chemistry. One is that hazardous chemicals, they continue to be released in the environment. And then two maybe more positive ones is that although sectors and products are using more and more chemicals, there's opportunities for innovation and sustainable consumption. And then maybe the most relevant finding is that green sustainable chemistry education and innovation, these are really important drivers of change. So thank you to all of you for being part of that change. And we're going to keep working on that message. So at the UN, we see chemical innovation, green sustainable chemical innovation. It can be molecules, that's chemical innovation. It could be using different chemicals or materials and products, that's product design innovation. And it could also be in manufacturing, so innovations in process design. And we see the concept as not just, you know, changing one chemical for another chemical that's a little bit less toxic, but, you know, using the potential of chemicals and using them in such a way to contribute to solving climate change, advancing circularity, and of course, reducing pollution. So you can see on the slide some ways that it can do that. So recognizing the findings of the GCO2, recognizing the potential of green and sustainable chemistry, countries came together at what we call the United Nations Environment Assembly, which is basically the world's parliament on the environment. It's the highest decision-making body in the UNEP. And all the countries came together to adopt a resolution, resolution 4/8. And in this resolution, there's some text on green sustainable chemistry, or in this case, sustainable chemistry, welcoming an analysis of best practice and developing a better understanding, and then requesting us at UNEP to develop manuals on green and sustainable chemistry. So that first manual was made available in 2020. It's called the Framework Manual. And over 100 experts were once again involved in making it. And, you know, the word manual was chosen deliberately. And that's because when you have a manual, you use it to do something. So the idea is that this manual can help anybody, teachers, people in business, people in government, do green and sustainable chemistry. So it's structured along this framework that's on the screen, with the first half, chapters 2, 3, and 4, explaining why we need green and sustainable chemistry, what it is, and then the second half of the manual explaining how, what are the enabling policies, sectors, actions that we can do to make everyone able to contribute to advancing green and sustainable chemistry. So I think you can imagine that green and sustainable chemistry education, that's going to be in the second half and the how. So a really important part of the manual is in chapter 3, and it's the 10 objectives and guiding considerations for green and sustainable chemistry. Those are those hexagons. I see these hexagons in my sleep, and I want everyone else to also. So these are also the result of over 100 experts from academia, from government, from international organizations, NGOs, companies coming together, and through a consensus building process, deciding what, highlighting what can green and sustainable chemistry achieve. You know, when we use chemicals in a way that's sustainable, or we're using chemicals in a new way, or we're taking action on chemicals, what do we want to do? So, you know, there's typical green chemistry considerations like minimize chemical hazards, advance more sustainable manufacturing or production processes, number 4. But then it gets into the more socioeconomic things as well, like maximizing social benefits, like how are chemicals being used to make products that are sustainable and affordable to people? How are they using that? How are they being used, or how are they being changed in the way they use to protect vulnerable populations? So this is a really nice resource for people, you know, who want to explain what green sustainable chemistry is quickly. And it's also kind of a bridge between chemicals and how we use them and the sustainable development agenda. And now kind of our work at the UN is to empower people, bring people together to apply these objectives, understand them, and advance them. That's the phase of the work we're in now. And this is just a little figure I made. So at the UN, they also see action on green sustainable chemistry needs to be transformative, and it needs to bring lots of different people together. So NGOs, all these people have a role to play in advancing these objectives. And another resolution was taken in 2022 in Nairobi, encouraging stakeholders, all of these people, to use the manual, because it is a manual. So that's kind of a summary of the UN Green and Sustainable Chemistry work. And I think, as you can guess, education is completely essential to using the manual. If people don't understand what green sustainable chemistry is, if students aren't prepared to take action, in their future careers, then we're not going to achieve it. So responding to that need, responding as well to the expert group who helped in the framework manual, we developed a specialized manual on green sustainable chemistry education and learning. And so this refers to, of course, learning in the classroom, which many of people in the audience are teachers, but also learning in all aspects of life, in all professions, in all settings where chemicals might be used. So the overall goal of the manual is to, help people see the need for green sustainable chemistry learning and also facilitate it. It's also a manual. So in the same way that the framework manual wants people to do something, the education manual wants people to do green sustainable chemistry learning, wants to get people to design learning interventions and design courses. And with that, stakeholders will be ready to apply those 10 objectives and advance them. So it has content on formal learning in the classroom, like I said, non-formal and informal. And it basically does this through a combination of practical guidance, a ton of examples, and organized educational resources. And we expanded that original expert group that the framework manual was developed by to add some people who are experts on education. So the target audience of the manual, of course, is educators and teachers. They're critical, but it also goes a bit beyond that to target all change agents. So those could be higher level deans and universities. Those could be policymakers who might have something to do with, school curricula or sustainability policy setting. It could be managers in departments of brands. It could be CEOs, just to communicate to them the potential of green and sustainable chemistry and how to teach it and what it can do for them. So it's very broad in who it's targeting. So here's just a brief table of contents of the manual. Starts off with chapter 1. That's kind of what I've already gone through. Chapter 2 is kind of those cross-cutting considerations that are applicable to all instances of green sustainable chemistry learning, action steps, formal learning, informal learning, and then bringing it all together in chapter 6 for strategic action. See how I'm doing on time. Doing good. So I'm just going to briefly go through the different parts of the manual before closing out with a more interactive part. So chapter 2 is those cross-cutting considerations. I don't need to get too deep into this, but I think something really interesting from chapter 2 is these new learning topics and resources that have been traditionally ignored in chemistry education that experts who helped with the development of the manual highlighted as should be included. So that's something that's definitely worth checking out in chapter 2. And then in chapter 3, we get into the real manual part of the manual, the step-by-step distilling kind of the experiences that people have had in designing green sustainable chemistry learning interventions, splitting those up into steps and explaining them. We'll come back to this. I'll just explain a little bit now. It follows instructional design principles, which I'm sure many of you are familiar with. The manual was the lead author was an expert in the instructional design process. And it talks a lot about competencies. So competencies are, there's a little quote in the top right there, you know, it's a capability of doing something. So determining the competency that you want to communicate to your learners when you are teaching green chemistry is a really important part of this chapter. And also there's kind of an organizational chart or way of deciding what level of competency do these students need. You know, a student in primary school doesn't need to know the same things about green chemistry as a, you know, master's student, obviously, but ultimately, you know, following these steps and having the information before you dive into designing a learning intervention can be really useful, and it can make sure that the activity is impactful. And it also, having these steps can help people around the world, not, you know, just people in this room, to do what needs to be done. So chapter 3 is that, and then once you get into chapter 4, I don't think I need to go into this because there's so many teachers in the room, and I'm sure some of the examples that are in chapter 4 actually came from some of you. But a ton of examples from all throughout the formal education system. There's some nice examples of designing green sustainable chemistry laboratory experiments, and a lot of resources which are nice to access as well. Some of the examples, there's the Química Sostenible Masters, which I went to in Spain, which I had to give a shout out to. And then chapter 5 is more non-formal learning. So, you know, professional development activities, webinar series, social media campaigns, books and games. And that's also a really important part of, you know, reaching those audiences that might not be traditional audiences for green chemistry learning, like citizens. And nonetheless, it's really important that they know about green chemistry in a way that they can participate in achieving it. You know, they can buy different products, they can vote in a certain way, they can tell their friends. So this is also really important, although maybe not quite as relevant to this event. Some other examples from chapter 5. And then chapter 6. Chapter 6 kind of ties the entire manual together. It is reflecting that need that I alluded to earlier about bringing lots of different types of people together to advance green sustainable chemistry education. So, you know, for example, in a university, bringing in industry, bringing in other disciplines of learning, and having them all contribute to some sort of program. You know, it could be a single course, it could be a part of a larger, you know, effort to advance green sustainable chemistry, but it includes some guiding questions for when you want to do more of a strategic effort and not just designing one learning activity. And I think that there's a lot of people in this room who could be the person to initiate this process. It only takes one to initiate it, but it takes other people and their participation to make the impact that we want it to make. Okay. I'll keep going for just a second. And then, so regarding strategic action, there's some other resources here. This is a roadmap development guide that we made at UNEP that I would encourage people to check out. You know, it could be a roadmap for education, or it could be a roadmap, you know, for the construction sector to advance green sustainable chemistry innovation, with education and learning a critical aspect of that roadmap. So whatever your specific context is, we hope these resources can be helpful for you to take the action that needs to be taken. This is, you know, an example roadmap template from the practical guidance. And the ACS Green Chemistry Education Roadmap is a great example of a strategic effort to advance green chemistry education, and something we drew upon a lot for the education manual and for this practical guidance. So I will stop rambling there. The point of this presentation and what I really want is to further complement the education manual. Right now it's kind of an 80-page manual. It's pretty long. We're definitely going to make an executive summary. We want to make other materials to complement it. And for that, we need examples. So I was hoping to get some examples today from you all, probably to complement these action steps. So there was some text sent out by Chloe ahead of time. It's okay if you didn't see it. It's up on the screen now, but it would be great if you can think of a time you participated in a learning activity or designed one. Many of you are teachers. And what do you remember about that experience that you want to tell to others who might be thinking of doing the same or who could do the same? Do you remember what it was like thinking about who you're teaching? What did you want them to learn? And how did you, differentiate between, the audience needs, the students need to learn this versus this, or this is too complicated for them, or we want them to be able to do this. So I'm going to give the floor now to somebody who really helped out with the development of the education manual, who's done a lot of great work in this field, Glenn, to share his experience and hopefully break the ice to have others share as well. I don't know if people are able to unmute themselves.
Thanks, Colin. Can everyone hear me okay?
Yes, hi, Glenn.
Oh, brilliant. Okay, great. Yes, my name's Glenn Hurst. I'm a professor of green chemistry education at the University of York in our Green Chemistry Centre of Excellence. And it's been fantastic working with Colin and the actual team to jointly create this manual, which I hope is going to serve as a really useful template for you to design and implement green chemistry teaching interventions across the piece. And I just wanted to briefly talk about two examples, one in higher education and one at the school level, where really those 4 steps that are currently depicted there, I personally found to be a really useful framework in terms of, in our case, working collaboratively with students, but to ultimately develop new green chemistry teaching interventions for implementation. So really just to briefly walk you through how we went about using this design principle in 4 action steps, starting at the higher education level. So our particular audience in this example was undergraduate students, undergraduate chemists specifically, so not those taking green and sustainable chemistry optional modules, but just chemists. We really feel as though chemistry should be innately taught in a green way, and green chemistry shouldn't be bolted onto it. So that was our audience. And in terms of competency level, we're looking at an upper division undergraduate students, so year 3. And in terms of the competencies that we wanted the students to develop through this particular intervention, it was learning about what green chemistry, not educational research, but research more broadly, is available out there, contextualizing that in terms of the chemistry content that we were teaching as part of our program, and disseminating it in an innovative way. And so we designed a learning intervention accordingly. And this was about students being given access to a particular research paper, working in groups to understand it, make links to their lecture courses, and develop an innovative infographic to share on social media that would articulate the key principles of that paper in a fun and exciting way. We really also asked the students, given it was an upper division set, to produce an associated list of key points as well from that paper, making links to our lecture course. And really, this was summatively assessed. Of course, before doing this, we defined associated learning outcomes based on the competencies that we wanted the students to actually develop. So we assessed this. We gave the students associated feedback, which actually scaffolded them producing presentations later on in their degree program when they did their own chemistry research, embracing green chemistry concepts. And we've been able to iterate that since then. So that's a higher education one. And in terms of at the school level, what we've done, and this was very much in conjunction with our international partners, what we wanted to do here was teach biorefining type principles while solving various problems really in different areas of the world that we have links with. And really working with students as partners to do that while teaching them green chemistry principles. Okay, so one of the ones that we did here was in Brazil, and a project based on oranges and thinking about valorizing waste orange peel, which of course is an issue. I believe Brazil is one of the largest exporters of oranges, and of course Ju can tell us all about that. But it's actually a big issue in that typically the peel actually goes in the trash and to landfill. But what we wanted to do was work with local communities within Brazil and school kids to be able to get value from that waste based on our research at York and elsewhere. And we were able to, like Paddington Bear, extract a pectin-based salt from the waste orange peel and transform that into marmalade. So a usable product. And so that was the intervention really. And this is quite a nice one because we've been able to adapt it at multiple levels. I mean, simply performing this and getting the practical skills could be some learning outcomes for some students, and together with thinking about circular economy principles. But you can extend it to the undergraduate level because you're making a gel. And so undergraduate students or postgraduate students might think about rheology, for example, associated with the resultant marmalade. And again, naturally, various assessments that embrace a systems thinking, circular economy based approach, which we've seen signposted as part of the UNEP manual, can be done. And of course, we want to evaluate that, see what the students thought, and iterate for next time. So that's just some quick examples there that hopefully sound fun and hopefully sound relatable. Thanks so much, Colin, for giving me a couple of minutes to talk. Hopefully that was useful context for everyone, and really excited to learn what you've all came up with as we go into breakout rooms. Thank you.
Thanks, Glenn. Those are really nice examples. And yeah, great to hear from teachers. Really interesting. What you said in the first learning intervention, it seemed to be like, you know, helping chemistry students connect better with sharing their research on green sustainable chemistry and communicating that better to, you know, the general public, which I think we can all agree is really important and something that, you know, will be really important, a skill, a competency that will be really important for future chemists or, you know, professionals working in R&D departments at companies or in academia to, you know, advance green sustainable chemistry objectives. So I think that's really nice. And, you know, I'm hoping that others can share, you know, similar experiences along your lines. I see it's 12:37, so I guess we have a little more time in this room. Let me look through if there's some questions. I saw some in the chat. From Carlos Alberto Jr. The document presents proposals or examples for inclusion, such as green chemistry education for students with disabilities. That's a great question. There is a section, it's in chapter 2, which underlines the importance of making the chemistry education classroom inclusive and supporting, groups who traditionally might have been left out or underrepresented in chemistry. It draws on some research from Grace Lasker from the University of Washington, who's been really helpful in developing manual. And I think the section is interesting because it not only, underlines that there are certain groups that are underrepresented in chemistry, but it talks about how including them is a precursor, is important to actually achieving the goals of green sustainable chemistry, because without their knowledge and their experiences, in the future chemistry world as professionals, whether they're chemists or something else, then the needs of those groups might continue to be ignored when we're taking action on chemicals or trying to use chemicals more sustainably. So that's a great question. Let's see. I saw another question from Monica. Does the learning activity need to be in the context of green and sustainable chemistry? So if I am understanding the question correctly, I would say not. It doesn't specifically have to be in the context of green sustainable chemistry. I think the UN would be really happy if in other learning activities, about product design or, about sustainability in general, if those can do better at including green sustainable chemistry and considering it, that would be a success, and also, integrating green sustainable chemistry better into general education for sustainable development is mentioned in the manual. So it doesn't need to be specifically with green sustainable chemistry, I guess would be my answer to that. Any other questions that I'm missing in the chat? Maybe someone from Beyond Benign saw one that I missed.
It looks like
Or-
Toyin has their hand raised. I'm gonna ask them to unmute and give their question. Let me know if that works, Toyin.
Thank
Great.
you. Yeah. Yeah. Hello, everyone. It's good to be here. The professor mentioned something critical that has to do with higher education. I believe in some of our university is not only chemistry, pure chemistry that can get involved in green chemistry education. We also need to take care of the teachers, would-be teachers, that we go back to high school, secondary school, and start familiarizing students with green chemistry education. In my own university, I've started developing modules on green chemistry education, but just an introductory aspect, like the 12 principles of green chemistry, because a research was conducted by myself and my team, and we discovered that pre-service teachers and the teachers in service, they don't have the idea, the in-depth knowledge of what is green chemistry. A lot of them claim to be aware, but the nitty-gritty of what green chemistry is all about is lacking. So, and that prompted me to start developing modules on green chemistry. And I believe this framework will help me to put flesh. So the module already developed. So I just need to ask a question if there is a provision for teaching green chemistry at secondary school level, and also introducing would-be teacher to green chemistry knowledge during their program. Thank you.
Yes, thank you, Toyin. Could you tell me what university you were a professor at?
Yeah, yes, a professor from University of Lagos, Nigeria.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay, thank you very much for sharing. I can say something quickly. The manual underlines the need for teaching teachers, which I think you were alluding to, that the teachers themselves, they need the capacity to know about green chemistry. There's a lot of content in the manual about that. There's some really interesting work that was done in Malaysia along these lines, and also a really interesting approach to helping secondary school teachers teach green chemistry is to work with universities. And there's an example of an activity where secondary school students go to a university, to a laboratory, and do a green chemistry experiment. And at the same time, the secondary school teachers, there's an element of that activity to help them learn as well. So that's a really nice way to maybe take advantage of the expertise at the university level to help secondary schools. And yeah, I'd love to see those modules that you're working on. I don't know if Glenn, you want to say something?
Thanks, Colin. No, I mean, all I would say that in addition to the manual, please look at the fabulous resources from Beyond Benign and the Green Chemistry Teaching and Learning community platform, where there's lots of resources there for teachers at the school level to integrate green chemistry into curricula as well. Thanks.